Somebody gave me about 40 pounds of bear fat. I'm not a bear hunter, but I got some from a taxidermist. And I'm going to try and render it down, and then we're going to make some soap out of the grease or lard, whichever one you want to call it. Bear lard, bear grease. Make some bear soap. Bear grease soap, bear fat soap. I'm kind of excited about it. We'll see how it turns out. I'll show you some pictures of the bear fat and my little slow cooker renderer here to get the grease out of it. So let's get going. This is the bear fat. This is the part they scrape off of the hide before they start to do their taxidermy work. This whole black trash bags. So there's about probably 40 pounds in there. There's some cleaner stuff here. I might even save that for another batch later, because that's I think that might be the stuff that comes, they cut off around the kidneys to clean the big like suet. But this is what we're rendering out right now. Got hair, some meat on it and everything, but I'm just going to be making soap out of this. I'm not really too much worried about how clean it is right now. I am going to strain it and filter it through some cheesecloth to make sure it's clean to make the soap. So right now it's as raw as it comes right there. Furnace I've set up here to render the bear fat. You don't need a big fire. You just need, like I said, it's like a slow cooker process. You don't want to cook it too fast. We're not actually cooking. We're just trying to get the oil out of it. Just rendering it out. But actually it smells pretty good. It's out like that. But you don't need a big fire. Just need to keep a small fire going underneath there. Throw a block of wood, and it's a slow process. It might take you 6-7 hours to do this fat, to get it down. But all right, we'll take the lid off here and show you what it looks like on the inside. Is it getting down? Starting to get a lot of grease in there now. Starts off slow, but when it starts actually cooking out, it cooks fast. Some people say you should grind it up, but I got so much of this I'm not going to grind it. And those things are pretty thin where he scraped it off of the skin anyway. Okay, we're still rendering down the bear fat. You can see it snowed since I started the video, but we'll still keep going. It's not too bad as long as you're next to the fire out here. Anyway, I've got it rendered down. There's still a few chunks in there, but it's rendered down to basically just grease now. And I'm going to be putting it in these containers. But before I do that, I'm going to put it in one of these tins so it cools off a little bit before I put it in the old coffee cans here, because I don't want to melt the plastic. And it doesn't take it long for it to cool down, as long as you put it in one of these. But got me a strainer. And I make my own dipper to dip this stuff out in. I got an old dipper gourd, made a good nice dipper out of it. And this thing will hold a lot of grease too. Now I'm going to filter this again before I make the soap with it. This is mainly just getting out the big chunks with this screen here, but I'll use some cheesecloth, maybe even an old t-shirt when I get it down to grease. That is a really clear grease too. Let that cool down a little bit. After it cools down a little bit, I pour it off into these coffee cans. And I'm going to put it in the cooler. After I get it all rendered out, then we'll filter it one more time, probably inside the house, to get it down to really clean grease. But right now, I have no trouble keeping the grease nice and safe and easy to use out here in this cold weather out here. But we'll keep going, and we'll get back to you on this later after we get some more done. Okay, we've got the fat rendered down into grease. It's in a liquid form. It's pretty clean right now, but it's still got some stuff in it. I want to get it filtered out before I do the final clarification on it to turn it into tallow. But I've got a colander here. Just got regular paper towels in there. I watched some stuff on YouTube. This seems to work just fine. Might take a while for it to drip through, but I got plenty of time. Put it over here. Now those paper towels will soak up some of this stuff. But it will eventually filter through. I can hear it already dripping through there now. Thought I would have to put this in the oven and maybe just put it on warm so it would drip through, but it's dripping through fine, just like it is. I did put the container in the sink with some hot water just to get it back into a liquid state, because it was just a cake of grease, white grease in there, because I had it outside in the freezing weather. But seems to be filtering through okay. I'll filter it, then after this we'll go to the clarification process with adding water to it, boiling it, getting it into a solid cake of tallow, and then we'll pretty much be done with the cleaning processes on it. We'll check back in a little while. Okay, I've strained about, I think about 2 gallons worth of oil in here. And you can see it did pick up a lot of that stuff out there. I've seen some of the videos on YouTube where they use cheesecloth to strain it the first time. The paper towels do a much better job. I see it. I tried it with the cheesecloth first. Too much stuff was getting through there. I used this paper towel method that I saw on YouTube from a guy in England who was clarifying beef fat for making soap. And the paper towel method works a lot better than the cheesecloth. And it's slower. You pour it in there, you just gotta wait, but you got plenty of time. But this is 2 gallons worth, and you can see how much accumulated in there. Now there's still particulate matter in here, but it's a lot clearer than it was. Let's see how clear it is. That's pretty clear. No big chunks or anything like that. Now there is still particulate matter in here. What I'm going to do, it's going to get down to about 25 degrees tonight. I'm going to put maybe a gallon of water in here, and yeah, you can see it on the bottom down there. Some of the particulate matter is already sank down to the bottom. There's a layer probably about maybe a 1/4 inch thick down on the very bottom. But well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it outside tonight just like it is. I'm going to heat it up one more time on the stove to allow it to get warm. And then once, I don't want it to cook or anything. I just want it to get warm so that all the solids that are possible will sink to the bottom. Then I'll scrape that out, leave the part in the bottom with the crud on it, and then I'll do the final clarification with some water and oil at the same time. But it's pretty clear, like I said. I mean, you can see it. I can see through it. Looks just like vegetable oil right here. And you can see it's clear. I could probably use it like this, but I want to get that stuff off the bottom down there. I want it to be as clean as possible when I make this soap. But I'll freeze it tonight, let it get down to 28 degrees, and in the morning I'll videotape what I scrape off the top here, and then we'll clean it one more time just to make sure we got everything out of it. As far as, we won't use any paper towels or anything. We're just gonna put it in some water, boil it, let it sit, let it get cold outside in the freezing temperatures, and then from my experience, you won't have any particulate matter on the bottom of that tallow that's in here. It'll be just as clean as everything. I did one before this, and that's the way it worked out. I put the water in there after I had scraped it out the first time, and it's clean as anything. But we'll get to that later. Okay, I've got the pot in now. I brought it in from outside. It's cold out there. And you can see that it has solidified. I'm going to scrape off the fat. And I'll get it down to the very
last part down at the very bottom. Bear fat's different than beef fat, stuff like that. It takes a long time for it to solidify completely. This one's still a little, it's very fluid right in the middle of it. I might just scrape the sides and then put it back outside. Get cold some more. I think that is what I'm gonna do here. But it still hasn't solidified completely in the center. It's pretty good. Anyway, I'll keep on scooping, and I'll probably put this back outside to harden up that center section some more. But the outside still, I left this out there all night long for almost 10 hours, maybe more than that. But it takes a long time to get that bear fat to solidify completely. It holds the heat. Okay, I'm going to show you how we clarify this on the final step. Normally I do this in a big metal pot so I can get a lot of it done at one time. But just to show you how it works, I'm going to use this small glass bowl. And what I do is I'm going to put, this is the part I scraped off the bottom, out of the stuff I let sit out overnight. Fill it up, then put a little bit of water in there. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it in the oven. Let it get just to where it's just starting to bubble. Because you don't want it to cook. You just want it to get warm enough so that anything in there, get the water mixing in with it a little bit. And then everything else will settle out. All the impurities will settle out. There's not going to be much. There's not going to be much impurity to come out of this. I'll be surprised if there's any at all. Because the stuff I've been doing has been coming out very clean, and I have seen nothing left in the bottom after we clarify it this way. But I'll put this in the oven, then after I let it sit, after I let it get to where it's starting to boil just a little bit, I'll turn the oven off, let it cool down, and then I'll put it either outside on a cold night or put it in the refrigerator and let it solidify. That way you can see exactly how much settles out into the water, and all the grease will be on top. It'll be one white cake of grease on top. But you'll see after I get it done. Okay, I just get it to start to boil just a little bit. And as soon as it starts to boil, I just turn it off. That's it. Then I just let it cool down. And that will be all I do with this for the final clarification. After it cools down, I'll probably let it sit all night, then I'll put it in the refrigerator in the morning. Or if it's cold outside, I'll just put it outside. But it'll solidify, and I'll show you that after it cools down. Okay, here you have the bear fat, or bear grease as I like to call it, after it has boiled from the last video for a couple of minutes. Then I let it cool down, then I put it in the refrigerator for over 24 hours. And you can see that there's really nothing on the bottom here. Now the water is cloudy down here underneath it, so that means that some of the residue that was still in the grease, the very fine stuff, has settled out on the bottom. But I don't see any of that brown stuff that you see in some of the other videos. So those paper towels did do a very good job filtering out the biggest pieces and did most of the work. And you can see, I'll even put a flashlight under here so you can see how clear it is. It is cloudy, it's not clear, but some of that might just be condensation on the bowl here, but it's fairly clear. There you see a few little things that fell to the bottom down there, but for the most part this is really clean tallow right now. It's still got some water in it, which will have to be we'll heat it up before we use it and make sure all the water is out before we make soap out of it. We'll have to add water to it again, but I want to make sure we get down to just the oil before we do any soap making. Let me raise the camera and we'll show you the consistency of this after it's set in the refrigerator for over 24 hours. Okay, now you see the top of it. This is after it's set in the refrigerator for over 24 hours. If this was beef tallow, if this was beef fat, this would be one solid chunk up here. But since this is bear fat, it's pretty solid, but still has a little bit of a liquid state to it. I mean, I can still skim it off and put it in another container as clean fat, but bear fat's just different than any other fat. I think it's because this is the fat that came off of the hide. I'm not sure if it came off the back or the belly. I don't think it came off the belly. I think it probably came off the back because that's the part they scrape out the most. But I think that fat on the back of the bear has a little bit different properties than the fat that's down around the belly and the kidneys and things like this. This is mainly, I think this is my theory, that the fat on the back is different because it's needed for insulation in the wintertime. And it provides them a nice warm blanket when they're out there in the woods sleeping under dead trees and things like that. But I'll scoop this out and put it in another container, and we'll go on and make the soap after that. I'll go ahead and show you what it's like when I scoop it out at this temperature. Still very solid, but you see the water that's in there. This is very clean. And as you can see, there's no brown residue on the bottom. And I think those paper towels pretty much did all of the work. So if you're going to ever be clarifying some tallow, use that paper towel method instead of the cheesecloth. I think you'll be your results will be a lot better. Normally, like I said, I would do this in a big metal pot, but I just wanted to do a small batch like this to show you how clean it is after you filter it through those paper towels. Like I said, this is very clean. I mean, the water has a little bit of a yellow tint to it. You can see that some stuff did come out of the fat, but that's about as clean as it gets. You can't get much cleaner than that.